A warm noon to everyone present. I, Rishika Multani, feel glad to welcome you all here in the session of Second Orange City Literature Fest by SGR Knowledge Foundation. The session will be of 40 minutes from 2 p.m. to 2:40 p.m. Our topic for this session is Let's Talk About Jennifer by our guest speaker Nandita Om Puri ma'am, and we have our moderator Monica Bhagwagar ma'am. Nandita ma'am was born in Calcutta and spent her early childhood in boarding school in the former French colony of Chandernagore. She studied in Calcutta and Bombay, majoring in English literature and worked as a writer and journalist with several newspapers like the Telegraph, the Statesman, and the list goes on. For nearly a decade, she wrote one of the most popular weekly films on cinema for midday Potpuri and India's largest circulated daily Dainik Bhaskar Khaas Chehre. He has also worked as a broadcast journalist for All India Radio and Radio Network in Calcutta. He has written for television and feature films, having penned a typical Bollywood commercial field called Mera Dil Leke Dekho, apart from a number of documentaries and shorts. In 2010, he published the biography Unlikely Hero Om Puri, which has been on the bestsellers list and translated in several Indian languages. Ma'am has been working and researching on the sensitive subject of international child trafficking and inter-country adoption since more than 3 years now. To the personal story of Jennifer Haynes, the book Jennifer's Story is being published by Rupa Publications. Our moderator Monica Bhagwagar ma'am is a social entrepreneur and the owner of designer paper company Paper Reach. Handing over the session to you, ma'am.
Hello, everybody. I hope I'm audible to all. Great. So a very, very warm welcome to you, Nandita. It's great. Hi.
Can you hear me?
Very clearly. Thank you. So it's great to have you here. I'm so looking forward to this session with you. And I'm not going to waste any time on any formal preliminaries because we want to save that time just to hear you. Well, I know that you have lots to tell us about, yeah? But my one question to begin with would you that I will, as we heard that you've been a journalist with so many erstwhile publications, the companies, newspapers, how and when was your transition from a journalist to an author? I mean, like what motivated you towards this shift?
So as a journalist, when I started out, I was, like obviously like a writer and a reporter and stuff like that till I started my own column. That was Potpuri for Midday and Khaas Chehre. And slowly what happened after 3-4 years, my style changed from plain writing, just reporting and writing, to a kind of, I would fictionalize some stuff. I would add little stories, dialogues and all. And that is one, I think, Gulzar Saab, who used to read my columns a lot. And one day he told me, बहुत हो गया columns अभी, you write well, ठीक है, अभी थोड़ा आगे बढ़ो, कुछ तो आगे, so I said, क्या करे? He said, write books, write stories, you write your columns almost like stories, so why don't you write? I said, you mean fiction? Array, he said, your columns have a beautiful blend of both, try it. So in 2005, because of Gulzar Saab's blessings, and he wrote the foreword also, and my husband's pushing, my first book of short stories called 9 on 9.
Right, yeah.
One of the short stories is also in the Denmark University, in their curriculum. It's in the Sahitya Akademi Anthology of Indian Writers. And the cover, of course, is by Hussain Saab, the late M.F. Hussain.
Wow.
So that's how I started. Moved into fiction. And then after that, I did the most popular, the most controversial, the most spoken about book, my husband's biography, Unlikely Hero.
Right.
And That was in 2010, and in 2012 was my romantic thriller, historical romance from 19th century India till 21st century, spanning two continents and three cities, Kolkata, Bombay, London, and Wales. So
Okay.
that was again, a complete fiction, but it took me about 7 years working on it. So basically, it was that. And after 2012, there was a big gap. Lots happened in between. And I kind of gave up journalism because of the kind of journalism we see. In my time, journalism meant, it was the fourth pillar of democracy.
Yes,
Today,
yes.
it is a paid pillar of democracy. It is jingoism instead of journalism. And there were times because of certain journalists who rule the roost today, I was very ashamed to even call myself a journalist. I wouldn't even say, I would say, no, I'm an author. And then I realized, why the hell should I? Those guys should be out. And I'm glad, that kind of journalism is slowly moving away. In our time, we had journalism in yellow. Now it is dirty, I don't know what color, black, black, green, red, purple, everything. So anyway, in 2014, that was my transition. 2012 was my last book, Two Worlds, and then of course in 2000 this year I had Jennifer out. So it's almost after 8 years.
Okay, great. Thank you for sharing all that with us, Nandita. Just a small question, and then we absolutely just plunge into Jennifer. I personally believe that an author's books are shaped by his her life, something that has impressed them, something that has stayed in their memory or their childhood, some instance that happened. What makes a writer write? What makes an author write? I mean, like, this is something that's always intrigued me. What's your take on this?
My take is, you see, writers write. That is their way of expression. Maybe they're not so articulate with the spoken word. They are much more articulate with the written word. In my case, yes, I prefer to write more than I speak, though I speak also. But I think I'm more articulate while writing. I can express better. And there are lots of things an author writes because you want to purge. It's like a cathartic experience.
True
So,
that,
like,
yes.
I have 9 short stories in 9 on 9. The central figure of each story is an urban Indian woman from various stratas, lower class, lower middle class, upper class, everything. But there is a bit of every woman in every short story, a bit of me, some characteristic. Then, of course, the biography, obviously, there's a part of me in it,
A major part of you, a major
part of me. Yes, a major part of me. And this, a lot of people say it's semi-autobiographical. So I said, no, it's not. The stories of the two women are completely different from my story, Ela and Una. But then there are portions which you have to base for authenticity, the surroundings sometimes, the characteristics sometimes, incidents sometimes. So what should we say? We just keep taking from our lives and people around us, their lives, and we keep putting it in fiction.
Okay, nicely answered. Now, let's talk about Jennifer.
Right.
I want to know first and foremost that what was it that inspired you to write about this story? It's a true story. And how did you chance upon this? I know it was a much talked about episode that happened in the year, but what made you write about this, Jennifer?
So, when I hadn't done any book writing from 2012, and I was just being very lazy and stuff like that. And then around 2014, there was an lawyer activist friend of mine, Pradeep Avnur. He says, I want you to meet this lady, Jennifer. I said, okay, I met her. I didn't find her very impressive. And then he gave me a whole lot of a dossier. He's saying, this is Jennifer's story, after I met Jennifer. So I read the story and I said, you mean this is the same lady? She said, yes, it's the same woman. So I said, amazing. I couldn't have believed, she's been through all this. So he says, I want you to write. I said, are you crazy? I am not part of any NGO. Those days, I'm talking of 2014. I have never done social service per se at the grassroots level. And why do you want me to write? It is non-fiction. I can deal with non-fiction. Child trafficking, intercountry adoption, not my subject at all. He says, see, it's a very important issue. Jennifer's case was also one of the freakiest cases in child trafficking history. And yes, we lost her, we thought we would win it, but we lost a case in the Bombay High Court because of technicalities, immigration laws. We also lost it in the Supreme Court. And now on humanitarian basis, we want someone to write and bring out the story. And Jennifer was a representation of the millions who suffered like her, So
Yes.
I said, no, it's too much of studying, too much of work, hard work. I can't fool around with a topic like child trafficking and intercountry adoption. I said, no, I cannot. So let me at least think about it. Meanwhile, I sounded the idea to a couple of my friends, and one of my friends is a IPS officer. He said, no, this is very interesting. You should do it. I said, yaar, bahut sare research karna hai. Then my husband, he said, I think you should do it, however difficult it is, because sometimes you should give back to society also.
Yes.
You should not only do things which are going to be bestsellers or this thing. Give back. That's your way of giving back to society. I said, okay. Then I embarked, and Pradeep and his colleague Arun Dole and Anjali Pawar, they are all members of an organization called ACT, against child trafficking, which is based out of Brussels, and their colleague there is Royally Post. So Arun and Royally work from Germany and Belgium respectively, Anjali and Pradeep from Bombay and Pune respectively. And they said, Pradeep said, any help you need, any research, we are there. We'll give you everything. You just write it. So I read, and there was so much Jennifer's story, all the court papers, dossiers, this, that. Then there was a whole lot on child trafficking, and completely. And in the middle of everything, I said, okay, I have to pull out a human interest story, because if I write a non-fiction on child trafficking, people are going to read 2 pages and throw it off.
Right.
Through the life of Jennifer Haynes, when you read the story and you realize the people who come in between and are involved in this, it works out better. So basically, I'm a storyteller by nature. So I strung a story of Jennifer's. Then I got child. I interwove the whole thing. And of course, from 2014-15, I started. And Jennifer was another ball game altogether. So, it's been like 5 years of research, interviews, research, everything.
I was coming to that, how long it took you to write this book.
It took me about 5 years. And 1 year, of course, was the editors worked on it for about a few months. And then, of course, there was a lot of controversial stuff in the book, because, see, I'm writing non-fiction. And I didn't want to say, and there exists a international group from the time of so-and-so century. I didn't want to write all those. I wanted to give it bang on. So, of course, my publishers kept telling me this whole subject is so controversial. So I said, don't worry. It's all been through. Before I gave it to the publishers, I made Pradeep and Arun, Pradeep read it.
Okay.
So that, so that whatever was legally wrong, he could have removed it. I said, I don't want to file, be running from court to court rest of my life. So please see it's legally clear. So he said, yes, whatever anyone objects to are in court. They're court papers. You're basing your story on that. And then, of course, my publishers, after going through all that, still had their apprehension. They said, can you remove some topics, some subjects like, the Illuminati or the missionaries of charity, Mother Teresa's, or the Vatican, or the United Nations, or, the Pope.
To remove them all.
Yeah, just the royal families. Can you just remove them? It doesn't, though, of course, they are all involved in child trafficking. They said, can you just remove this? Because, it doesn't, I said, listen, if I remove that, then it will be a fiction. It will not be a non-fiction. And the whole
Exactly.
idea is to bring forth this. So please let us, go with it. So that's then they went through with their lawyers and Pradeep and Arun. They, so about 6-7 months went, and then of course it came out it was published in March this year. Unfortunately, I would have loved to be physically present in all festivals. Yeah, but now we are doing it all virtually.
Nandita, do you mind showing us the cover of the book once
Yes,
again?
I will.
I'm pretty intrigued by the cover. What does it mean to you? What are you trying to tell the readers? What is it about, the graphics?
Well, that you'll have to ask my editor, Shashwati Vora, because when it came to designing the cover, she has a lot.
It's unusual.
Yeah,
It's very
it's very
unusual. It's very
unusual.
intriguing.
So, I was just she said, let me think about it because she was so involved in the book. So I said, what do you want to put, a child's hand with an adult's hand or something like that? Or he says, no, let's not clutter the page. And then she went into this. This is a swirl. This is she and the designer. Both of them together, they designed. And
It's
there
very
is
nice.
also in the back, a bit of it in the back, with the back blurb. And they said, let's leave it white and let's show the inhumanity of child trafficking, of intercountry adoption, and the blood which goes behind it. Because actually, when we talk of adoption, and when we send out children, out of the 100 children, only 10 reach proper adoptive homes. 90 of the kids are, used for pedophilia, for organ transplant, for jihad, for all sorts of Middle Eastern sports, bloody
Yes.
sports, for a
Yes.
whole lot of other things. So I think this Jennifer's life is all that.
I think most youngsters should read. All our youngsters read this book because it's really an eye opener. A lot of times we know things are happening, but then we keep quiet about it. We push it aside. That okay, it's happening, but if you're not, just ignore it. And that's where the problem lies because we choose to ignore it. It's too shocking. It's too scary to accept things like this. But then, bottom line is that the moment you start ignoring it and come into your comfort zone, that's the problem there. Okay. Thank you for explaining about the book graphic, the cover page. This particular book, Nandita, has been hugely acclaimed. It's been called as a gut-wrenching, heart-wrenching. It's an eye-opener.
Right.
How did you research on her and draw out such strong emotions? And as you mentioned earlier, I'm sure there was some opposition from some authority. Did you face any difficulties while writing about this, doing research on her? Were there any blocks? Because it's a very sensitive matter. And as I understand, many agencies were involved into this, right? So did you face any difficulty?
Not from the agencies because I did a very smart thing. I kept absolutely quiet about the book. Nobody even knew. In fact, when people said, what are you working on? I said, yeah, I'm just looking at things. I'm just, looking out for options and all. Let's see what comes out of it. So nobody knew I hadn't even breathed out a word to the press till the book was about to be published in March. Then in January, I kind of, a little bit went around in some lit fest. Yes. Now the thing is, the opposition I actually faced was on and off from Jennifer. Because, yeah. So the first time when she came, when I finished reading about her, I made my point.
How old is she now? How old is she now?
She is about 36, 37. So that was 5 years earlier. So when Pradeep told, and she respects Pradeep a lot because Pradeep is responsible for, keeping her sanity intact. So I remember first time she came home, I had read about her, I had made my pointers, I had made a framework of the book. Now I had to fill it in. One part of the research I was reading on my own and filling in, and through interviews and all, and the other was main subject was Jennifer. So Jennifer comes the first day and she says, can you lend me a pair of shorts? I said, huh? So she said, I need to be comfortable. I don't know what she was wearing, some pair of jeans. I said, see, I don't have any pair of shorts to lend you, just wear this. And briefly, I'll go through. Jennifer, as an 8-year-old, was trafficked out of India by Clarice D'Souza and her organization into the US as an 8-year-old under the garb of adoption. She was actually snatched from her parents and she was trafficked out in the US. She lived through 2 adoptive white American homes for a year and a half. In both these homes, she was sexually abused by the white American father and brothers. Then after a couple of years, she was put into the American foster care system at the age of 10, which is the worst system in the world. And from 10 to 18, she changed 50 foster care homes. In this interim period, she was on drugs, she was hustling, she was a kleptomaniac, shoplifting, she did a whole lot of things. At the age of 18, when she was out of the foster care system, she met a 4th generation Chicago Black American drug dealer, and they got married, and they both started hustling crack cocaine. So then they got kids. So while her son was 4 and her daughter was 3, both of them were busted undercover, sent into 2 different prisons. One for in Newberry, the husband, and she went to a different this thing in Michigan, and that's where they discovered that her papers were not right. 20 years she lived in the US because she kept changing, so they could not process her papers. But what happened is, if you cannot process the papers, and if Jennifer is a felon, and she's been accused of aggravated felony, then you should let her serve her term, 3 years, 2 years, 5 years, and then process her papers. Because at the age of 8, she's already an American citizen because she's already been in America. So it's your fault not to process a paper. But more than them, it is the fault of the Indian ambassador sitting in Washington, not knowing the rules. A stupid lady called some Meera Shankar, who just without checking the rules and the thing, just signed Jennifer off and sent her back to Bombay on a Delta flight, hand and feet shackled. And here, when she knew nothing, for her, India was just a country in the map, and she couldn't speak. She speaks American. Her children, her husband, everyone is there. Her friends are there. She comes to Bombay, hasn't a clue what to do. That's when Pradeep kind of helps her, tries to, and ACT helps her, and they go into her background. They get her an Indian passport, and she, for 10 years, 12 years, she's in India. Till 2 years ago, she was in denial that she's an Indian, and rightly so, because she is an American. She's not an Indian. But now she's kind of taken it into her faith. Okay, that's all I have to do. I'm an Indian. So it's very sad. And then here also she got into hustling again, because there was no money. And every time she would get a job in a call center or somewhere, they would check her background, Google her background, and then they say, no, we don't want you. So this became a huge problem. Hers was a catch-22 situation, and and as she says, people say that when life gives you lemons, make lemonade out of it. And Jennifer says, when life throws rotten lemons at you, tell me, how do I make lemonade out of it? So that is the story of Jennifer. So,
okay, I can see that you're very, very passionate about her. And the book, of course, is a result of that passion that you have about writing as well. There are 2 very important questions, and we have little time left, Nandita.
Yes.
So,
Sure.
very quickly, what do you then say about our Indian laws regarding adoption? And I'm sure there are many loopholes now. I realize this.
Yeah.
So, I want a quick answer on that, because then I want to know much more about the Om Puri Foundation, please.
Okay. So yes, the laws, the laws are much better. The Central Adoption Research Bureau, CARA, has tightened the laws so that if today you adopt a child, and even if you get the child into your country 6 months later, the day you sign the adoption papers, the child becomes a citizen of the US.
Yeah.
In Jennifer's time, unfortunately, that was not the rule. But things are much more stronger, tighter. But I still feel inter-country adoption should be banned. Children should remain in their own country, within their own geographical. I mean, just imagine a Black American adopting a Chinese, or a white American adopting a brown Indian. You know, there are so many physical
yeah, I understand.
questions. So I think it's best, according to the Hague Resolution, we should stay within our countries. Inter-country should be banned, at least, I feel.
I think that you have a very strong and valid point there. Worth thinking about. Okay, you started a YouTube channel and the foundation. Tell us about that, please.
So the Om Puri Foundation was started in 2017 by at the 70th Cannes Festival. We lost Omji very suddenly in January. His January 2017. His diary was full till 2021, and there he went. You know, he still had 5 days of tube light shooting, and he went suddenly 5 hours before he was there, and 5 hours later he was gone. So in that year, the 70th Cannes at the British Pavilion, we launched the Om Puri Foundation. The idea of the foundation was to carry his legacy and his philosophy ahead, because he had been to all these festivals. He was not an Indian actor. He was known as the international face of India, the only Indian actor to have got the OBE by the Queen of England, the Order of the British Empire, as well as the Indian government awards. So I thought, you know, and he was very, people in the UK are very fond of him. And because he's done a lot of British films, he's done lots of serials. So I thought through all his Indian and British films, we could take it, and Hollywood films, he's worked with the masters. We would take it through festivals and etc., etc., etc. Shyam Benegal, Satyajit Ray, Bharat Ek Khoj, the works. And through the philosophy, we thought, you know, he came from extremely trying circumstances. He didn't have money when he went to LSD, nor he had money when he went to FTI. It was the good, you know, the goodwill of friends, the generosity of Girish Karnad, who helped him out, you know. So I introduced the Om Puri scholar at the FTI, started out with, and the Om Puri fellow at the National School of Drama. And he was very close to the farmers. And he was very close to the farmers and the weavers, because he played a master weaver in Susman, Shyam Benegal's. So I also introduced the Om Puri Kisan Scholarship for farmers' children and the Om Puri Karigar Scholarship for the weavers' children. Because one he felt was the backbone, the farmers of our nation. The other he felt we need to be self-reliant through them.
Right.
During this pandemic, if you go onto our website, the ompurifoundation.com,
I did.
we actually went ahead. It's no longer for theatre and film students.
It's just
Everything was online. So I said, now let's help people we need. So the Dabbawalas came, the farmers, the weavers, the cyclone relief victims of Bengal. So what we did, and we are different from the other NGOs. We are an NGO, but we don't give it directly to any NGO. We coordinate with them. Like with the Mukti Foundation for the Amphan relief, the Dabbawalas for the Dabbawalas, the Dastakar for the weavers, and the Dorje Patil Trust. So we take the names of the needy people and send money directly into their accounts so that they can buy their ration or whatever with the money. So we, you know, and we are, obviously, we tie up with the NGOs, they help us to give us the names from their database. And we've also started our YouTube channel called Puri Baatein.
Puri Baatein. Well thought of.
So it's basically a virtual Om Puri museum. You have actors, directors, all associated with Mr. Puri and beyond, you know. And of course, another project of the Om Puri Foundation is Project Jennifer. So I've just, during the lockdown, written the screenplay of the book. Yes.
Of the book.
Yes, of the book. So the screenplay, the fourth draft is ready. Of course, when we get a producer, we do the final shooting draft. So once that is done, Let's hope
Yeah.
we see it on the big screen or the OTT platform. Absolutely, because Jennifer's story should go right ahead.
It should. Like I said, especially our youngsters must know what's going on. The underbelly is not always very pleasant, and we must face up to it. So, Rishika, do you think we have some time for questions, or we can carry on?
Ma'am, we have 5 minutes for our to end.
The questions. Okay. So now, how do you keep yourself busy now with this NGO, the foundation, the YouTube, the writing? This, I mean, I can see that your life is full right now.
Yeah. It is full, and I like it. Touch wood. I want it to be that way. And I love doing all these webinars. I love to, get into and spread the knowledge. And this year is Omji's 70th birthday. So we have a lot of things lined up. Apart from Puri Bate, which we launched, we also have, a short story writing competition and lots of other things. And we'll be bringing out a lot of stuff. So please stay tuned to Puri Bate and the ompurifoundation.com. And of course, I love other simple things of life like cooking and eating.
That's my question. Who is Nandita Puri? Besides the author, who is Nandita Puri?
Nandita Puri is otherwise a very simple housewife, and I'm very proud to call myself a Hazif, because there was Omji who did the main earning, and I always lived, and he would always say, see, I have to go out in the sun and work hard. So you are the privileged lot. So you not just write, you write for a good cause, for social cause, do something good. So that is one of the reasons for the Om Puri Foundation. And
So that's good because he encouraged you a lot. That's great. How do you both?
Of course. As I said, if Gulzar Sahab was responsible, so was Omji. Gulzar Sahab said it once and in between, but Omji went on and on. I said, he says, write a book, Why are you just sitting in
How did you both meet?
Oh, I went to interview him.
This is the filmy part of it.
This is the filmy part. Okay. So I went to interview him when he had come to Calcutta for the shooting of City of Joy, Roland Joffe's. So he was, Shabana, Patrick Swayze. So they were in the film, and I was a cub reporter. And we all wanted to go and interview Patrick Swayze because he was just fresh out of Dirty Dancing. So I went and told my editor, and my editor said, no way. Why would we send you to interview Patrick and Roland? You do something. So I was very disappointed, very disheartened. You see, you go and interview Om Puri.
He was your second choice by default.
He always used to tell me. So I said, okay, fine. Those days were pre-Google days, so I had to go. Of course, I had seen his films. I was very much in fact, I was much more aware of Om Puri and Shabana Azmi than I was aware of Patrick Swayze.
Right.
But anyway, I went to interview him for the Telegraph color magazine, and that's it. Then
rest is history.
Rest is history. Too personal. I'll tell you personally.
Right. Okay. Any questions, Rishika?
Ma'am, we'll conclude the session.
Yeah, there's no time left. Yeah, that's unfortunate. We just have 3 minutes left. Okay. So, Nandita, one thing I want to offer you, that if there's anything that we can do for you from Nagpur, at Nagpur, in Nagpur, as regards the foundation and all that brilliant work that you're doing, we'll be very, very happy to be a part of that.
Lovely.
I think it warms the cockles of my heart to know this, Jennifer. A book has come out, and you have taken such pains to write about a topic which is so what is the word? I mean, important. It's not a new thing that's happening. It's been happening over the years, but no one has taken the guts to, pinpoint on it and bring it out in the open. So we are very grateful to you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much for your time. It's been an absolute pleasure. You are such a live wire. I had to ask you no questions. You just took off the whole thing, and I hope I get another chance to speak with you.
Absolutely. And likewise, I enjoyed it. Thank you, Monica. Thank you, Rishika. Thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you.
Thanks very much. Yeah. Bye-bye. See ya. Bye.
Take care. Bye.
Thank you, ma'am, for this wonderful session. On behalf
Thank you.
of Foreign City Literature Fest and SGR Knowledge Foundation, we sincerely express our gratitude towards your acceptance for this session and knowledge shared with us. I would also like to acknowledge our radio partner 92.7 Big FM for their support. And lastly, I thank our audience for joining this session. Thank you.
"20 years of existence, 2 universities, 23 educational institutes, offering 137 courses. Raisoni Group of Institutions, a vision beyond."